Here it was more about setting a specific atmosphere for it and a specific feeling.
What is root we went down to now is exactly that represents visually what we do musically.
Working with Obscura was a very easygoing process right from the beginning. We had a lot of time to develop the concept because in this album they made some changes. They added some different elements to their music, added some different elements, and they changed the record label. And they wanted to try something else with the artwork as well.
First of all, we talked about where the band is coming from. We just closed a 10-year lasting long chapter about 4 albums that have been connected in terms of artwork, in terms of all visuals. That all was linked to lyrics, to the music and all of that. That was one big chapter. The band is almost 20 years old. This was the biggest work we achieved so far.
We wanted to focus on how are we gonna balance the difference between the already established visual world, the visual vocabulary that Obscura already had with their back catalog, while introducing the newer elements.
The last albums, they've been in that tech death, progressive death metal universe. This stands for pretty much polished and super clean performances, productions, everything is like completely clean and almost like computer generated. At least that's my impression.
In this album they're going a little bit more in the direction of dealing with personal issues, dealing with loss, dealing with saying farewell to personal relationships or maybe family members, saying farewell to the way that you look at the world in the context of awareness or consciousness.
I wanted to unfold the human touch of everything. That's a concept I followed through producing the album. For example, acoustic guitars, we left all scratches in. We wanted to hear that a human is playing a certain instrument. And with the artwork, it's exactly the same.
It was about introducing the human element to it, which is something that they didn't have on their previous album covers.
What we achieved with this artwork for Valediction is the combination of both. We followed the path the band started in 2002. We didn't change everything from scratch. We took over a lot of ideas from the past, so the signature look and visuals of the band are still there. Something you see in the arrangement of the entire artwork, but also in terms of a color palette.
That's an interesting one because the colors is also something that he had in advance. Bronze, more like yellowish red stuff, towards darker black and more like a mustard kind of. So it was my job to find a balance between not giving it an entirely new aesthetics, which would hint at this being like a totally new band. And I think I got it right from the beginning because he had a very detailed explanation how he envisioned the new album to be.
I collected all ideas I had for the new album. I sent him, I think, a couple of lyrics, what I liked of his work. Generally speaking, working with an artist, you always have to give a certain freedom. Freedom to the art for his interpretation of our band, of the music, of the visuals. Because working with an artist is always a matter of trust. You simply give everything you have to the artist and wait what is coming back.
When you get into this type of projects, you get basically very much involved with the band. I mean, it's your album as much as it's their album when it comes to how much you're emotionally attached to it.
Communication is key in everything you do. We talked a lot, we shared ideas up front, starting developing and creating this art, and this was the biggest benefit.
He sent me pre-production samples or demos of the new songs, and you could sense that it's going in some newer directions, but it wasn't like a completely new band. I don't think that old fans of the bands will have a hard time recognizing the band's signature sound. So it was more about evolving, it was more about adding new ideas and keeping it fresh and interesting. There's the composition, which is basically based around symmetry, which was always present in all the Obscura artworks. But as far as the center of it, it just features newer elements with the human figures that were not present on the older album covers. They're still a very progressive technical death metal band, which has this aesthetic of space and that cosmic touch, which is what drove me to the actual metaphor of the album cover. I remembered reading about eclipse, about solar eclipses, and how the original word for it derives from ancient Greek eclipsis, which means abandonment, downfall, or ceasing to exist, which connected these two worlds of the cosmic and the personal.
The first impression I had was the fact that Eliran took over the framework of the arrangements of our previous records. You have a certain main part in the very center of the album, like the focus is always on that, but you also see the more universal approach to it. It's completely timeless, and this is what I'm always looking for. That's what we did in the past, that's what we're doing now. But I think the entire approach got a little bit more personal.
My vision for it was how I saw some shapes inside the shape of an eclipse. Because when I thought about it, it felt to me like we could see a person, like a human figure cradled inside the dark part. I saw another human figure inside the light part of it.
What I see here is the fetal posture of the main character at very first look, but at the second look, you see the second character.
It is a little bit open to interpretation, but that's because when I work on an album cover, I try to encapsulate the entire set of lyrics, and you try to come up with a single metaphor that will have a little bit of everything inside of it.
I see there are two worlds somehow connected but disconnected at the same time. Somehow this is poetic in my point of view.
With everything I do, I try to have some reference shots to work off of them. And when it comes to trying to do realism, I usually I take shots of myself, friends, family. So I modeled for the reference shot that I used for the main character over here. This is a more muscular version of myself. I had to paint like new muscles over it. The original photo was taken in my bedroom. Someday somebody will hack into my computer and find all of these embarrassing photos of me cradling myself or doing these weird poses. Hopefully not.